Good morning, or good afternoon, depending on where you are joining us from, and a warm welcome to all. You have joined the second technical session for Module 9 on social media, in which you'll learn how to streamline your social media plans so you can go from surviving to thriving on your social media channels. This module is brought to you by the Digital Empowerment Project for Small Museums, a nationwide initiative organized by the 6 U.S. regional associations and dedicated to providing free, self-paced training resources for small museums. This inaugural series of online trainings and resource toolkits focused on digital media and technology topics is made possible by funding from the Institute of Museum and Library Services. My name is Zinnia Willits, and I am the Executive Director of the Southeastern Museums Conference. My pronouns are she, her. I'm a light-skinned white female with shoulder-length reddish-brown hair. I'm wearing black-rimmed glasses that are often referred to as cat eye style. And today, I'm wearing a light blue crew neck sweater, and I'm sitting in my office in Atlanta with a backdrop of shelves filled with square cylinder boxes containing SEMC's history behind me. As the host for today's session, I would like to convey just a few things to our attendees before we begin the program. In this era of virtual meetings, when digital spaces may substitute our physical sense of place, it is important to reflect on the land we each occupy and honor the Indigenous people who have called it home. Today, I'm speaking to you from Atlanta, Georgia, the historical homelands of the Muskogee, Creek, and Cherokee peoples. Wherever we are, let us acknowledge all Indigenous nations as living communities, their elders both past and present, as well as future generations. We ask you to reflect on the place where you reside and work, and to respect the diversity of cultures and experiences that form the richness of our world and our profession. Thank you. And now for just a few housekeeping notes before we introduce today's presenter and get started. First, the best place to view this session in real time is on the Museum Learning Hub website under the Watch Live tab at museum-hub.org. Here you'll be able to see all the captions, chat, and others' questions. I would also like to acknowledge today's American Sign Language interpreter, who will be on the left side of your screen, and let you know that captioning for today's program will be embedded in a box just below the YouTube player on our website, with controls to adjust your experience. The best way to continuously refine our programs is to listen to our attendees, and we ask that you share your candid feedback with us. Following today's program, you'll be sent a link to a satisfaction survey. Sharing your experience through this survey will only take a few minutes and will greatly improve our work. We encourage you to pose questions to our presenter, which will be addressed at the end of the program after the presentation. Please type your questions in the chat. A team member will be gathering them. We'll address as many questions as time allows. However, we may not be able to address all questions, and other questions may arise after reflecting on a program. For this reason, we have set up an online community forum for raising questions, posting answers, and connecting with your fellow museum practitioners on the Museum Learning Hub website, which again you can find at museum-hub.org. If you are looking for help between programs, please visit this forum, create a login, and post your questions. A member of the community or one of our student technology fellows will get back to you. Finally, to stay connected with us and be aware of future programs, please follow us on social media. Links will be posted in the chat. Now, it is my pleasure to introduce today's presenter, Chung Barrera. Sewon is a digital marketing strategist with over a decade of experience launching multi-channel marketing campaigns and developing results-driven content strategies. Currently, she oversees the digital marketing department at the Exploratorium, a San Francisco-based museum of science, art, and human perception. Previously, Sewon led global content marketing campaigns at Samsung and developed content strategies for startups, e-commerce businesses, and Fortune 500 companies. Sewon holds a Master of Arts from Columbia University's Graduate School of Arts and Sciences and a dual BA in Literary and Cultural Studies and Sociology from the College of William and Mary. I have enjoyed getting to know Sewon and am thankful for the time she has devoted to this session. Now I'm pleased to turn the floor over to Sewon Chung Barrera to get us started.
Thank you so much for the introduction, Zinnia, and good morning, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Sewon Chung Barrera. My pronouns are she, her, hers. I am a Korean American woman with short, dark, brown bob haircut, wearing a white collared shirt, and I am joining you live from my home office in San Francisco, California, with a big monstera plant and framed artworks behind me. I want to also take a moment to acknowledge that I am currently located in the unceded ancestral homeland of the Ramaytush Ohlone, who are the original inhabitants of the San Francisco Peninsula. Today, I am especially grateful for the time we have together to dive into the ever-evolving world of social media tools. My career, as Zinnia shared, has really been rooted in my passion for storytelling and connecting people with tools to tell their stories. In many ways, I also attribute much of my ability to find creative solutions in challenging environments to my childhood, being raised by immigrant parents who struggled to start small businesses on their own, handling everything from inventory management to marketing and customer service without any staffing support, all the while learning a new language. Currently, I am the Senior Manager of Digital Marketing and Content Strategy at the Exploratorium, a museum of art, science, and human perception, opened in 1969 by physicist Frank Oppenheimer as the world's first Explore for Yourself museum filled with hands-on exhibits and experiences. The Exploratorium has over 400 employees with 3 full-time staff members dedicated to digital marketing to support the entire organization. So while we still do have to operate fairly lean for a larger museum, I do want to recognize that there are many museums without full-time digital marketing staff members. And there was a time during my tenure that I was the only digital marketing staff member running all of our social media channels, in addition to newsletters, marketing automation, SEO, SEM, and digital advertising campaigns. And it was not simple. This challenging moment really propelled me to lean on my past experiences with tools to save time, identify and smooth out friction points, and find creative ways to get work done with impact and a little more ease and joy. So you may be feeling similarly excited yet overwhelmed by social media, especially for those of you that joined Lori's Workshop 1 on social media strategy. You might be feeling all the more inspired with a clear vision. Wherever you might be on your journey, I deeply hope that some of the tips that I will share today will leave you feeling empowered to take another step towards social media strategic launch and dare to try something new. So topics to be discussed. So these are the topics that we'll be discussing today. One, we'll start with common pain points and challenges. Sometimes it's hard to identify what might be making us stuck when we're actually stuck. So we'll get clear about what some of these pain points and challenges might be for a small museum or marketing team juggling social media on top of other responsibilities. And then 2, we'll go over a couple examples of specific tools that are out there that can help address some of these pain points without breaking your budget, many free tools as well. And then in case it's helpful to see an example of a workflow, I'll share an example workflow for how you can plan ahead using some of these tools. And 4, we'll go into some opportunities for cross-channel integration. We'll go over ways to create a bit more impact by integrating your social media channels and your work on social media with other marketing activities that you might be working on, such as your website, newsletter, and so forth. And then I'll share just a couple more ideas that might help you save some time on a limited budget at the very end. And then we'll have some time for questions. Right, this slide says common pain points and challenges. So take a moment to think about what you actually do when there is a sudden social media content need at your museum. Maybe there's an upcoming event. Maybe suddenly everyone remembered it's Earth Day tomorrow and you need to do a post. What do you do first? What's your workflow? How long does it take you to get that post published? What happens after you publish your post? So think about that workflow for you. What do you do first? What do you do next? And as you keep that in mind, consider this one kind of example scenario. Example scenario V1 is one of the most simplified versions of a common workflow that you might identify with if you have worked on a social media post for your museum. And for some of you that may have not quite worked on it yet, something that I do want to share with you upfront is that posting on social media for a museum is a little different from posting on a personal social media channel, and you'll clearly see why. So the example workflow one is to confirm that content idea first, right? Could be an internal need, an event is happening, an external happening, such as Earth Day happening soon. Once that content idea is confirmed, then two, you're going to go in and search for a visual. Especially if you are on social media channels that are highly visual, like Instagram, for example. And that visual could be an image, video, a graphic, could be a text turned into a graphic, for example. So you're going to be searching for that visual. And once you find that visual, three, you've got to prep that visual for every channel. So as you know, Instagram has square posts, Facebook has their own sizing. So every channel has their own sizing. So you might need to resize your image, or maybe it's a video and there's a length limit for each channel. So you might have to get your videos to adhere to the minutes that are allowed on the channel. And then once that visual is all set, then you've got to work on your copy to accompany the visual. And potentially that copy has to be reviewed by internal stakeholders. Maybe there is an environmental scientist that wants to add something for Earth Day, right? So then you're going into internal kind of stakeholder reviews for your copy. And once all of that is set, then you go into scheduling your social media post. And you're going to be scheduling it for each of your social media channels. And once that's scheduled and gone out into the world, you're going to want to take some time to analyze how it performed. And perhaps you posted on a day with really low engagement. Fridays tend to be kind of lower in engagement for some museums. Maybe you're going to want to repost it the following week, or maybe iterate it on it and post a different iteration of that post based on how it performed. So this is an example workflow for squeezing in an unplanned social media post at the last minute. You might have your own versions of this workflow. And couple things to think about what could go wrong in a day of a museum professional who is juggling social media on top of other responsibilities is maybe there's not an image available to accompany the copy. Or maybe that copy, as we mentioned, has to be reviewed by a number of other people. Maybe it's actually an external community partner that you're working with. Maybe you're finally ready to go ahead and schedule your social media post, but you're being pulled into a really important timely meeting and you don't have time to schedule the post. Or maybe you're trying to squeeze it in between meetings and errors and typos pop up in the post because of time constraints. And maybe you do get everything out the door, but maybe you don't have time to sit down and look at the performance of your social media content. And because of all of this, maybe you start to have gaps in your social media content publishing. Maybe you only post on times of the year when you have time to work on it, and you start to have gaps in your publishing, which leads to lower social media engagement rates. So there are a couple ways things could go wrong. And so this example scenario V2 revised version has a couple of these potential interruptions included in. searching for a visual, realizing there's no suitable visual. While prepping the copy, realizing the copy requires all of these stakeholder reviews. Now you have to get in touch with the stakeholders. Maybe everything is finalized and you don't have time to actually schedule. So this is just an example of how museum professionals might be experiencing social media workflows, because I have definitely been there before. It's one of the reasons I wanted to kind of go into time-saving tools with that in mind. Think about your pain points. Think about what you find the most challenging, and think about the tools within that light, rather than thinking about tools for just their bells and whistles. So we'll go on to time-saving tools now. So what are some considerations in choosing a tool? Some pros. 1, tools can save you time by allowing you to plan and schedule content ahead. So we're going to be reviewing a number of social media scheduling tools today, so that you can do your scheduling workflow in a single place versus in multiple tabs, or your phone and your desktop computer, for example. And by scheduling posts ahead, you can maintain a consistent posting cadence, whether you're on vacation, whether you have meeting-heavy days, whether you have large responsibilities looming. The scheduled posts are published automatically on a set day and time, which frees up your time. And you can schedule the post during a time and date that you have the highest engagement around. Maybe it is Tuesdays around lunchtime. People really love to engage with your content, versus needing to just publish whenever you have time. And it really reduces the pressure on your team, because it creates a bit of buffer room for any content that requires you to prepare. So everything from searching for a photo to cropping the photos, reducing the video links, getting sign-off on copy from an expert on your team on a topic, for example. And all of this planning decreases chance for errors and typos, which means it reduces extra work that you might have to do once the post goes out. A couple kind of cons is that it may cost money to use the full functionality. So I did my very best to focus on free and low-cost tools, but it may be true that that there are features that you want to have in your scheduling platform, such as deep analytics, that cost additional if you do want that incorporated. Another con, and this is definitely the case for say someone's kitchen, right, and tools that we have in there. You may have tools that just are not used, are not being adopted, and so that's something definitely to look out for, especially when you're on a lean budget. And then third is that using tools does require you to plan and coordinate ahead and set aside that time. And so it's a different way to plan out your time. Instead of doing daily, you're really thinking about longer term planning. So to kind of walk you through planning and scheduling tools, I've broken this down into 4 different kind of categories. One is in-app, free ways to schedule in your posts. That's provided by the social media platforms themselves, as well as tools where you can go ahead and schedule across different social media channels in a single kind of dashboard. Hootsuite is a common one, Buffer, and then Sprout Social. Aside from these 3, there are numerous other ones. And for folks that are tuning in live, feel free to comment for tools that you love and that you use, and share with others. There's multiples out there, but these 3 ones are ones that I specifically have experience around, and wanted to share because they do start at free. Hootsuite starts at free, and it is $49 per month for kind of a pro plan. But for the free plan, one user is included, up to 2 profiles. So up to 2 profiles. So if you have 2 Facebook pages, then those would be 2 profiles. If you have 1 Facebook page and 1 Instagram account, that would be 2 profiles. And they let you schedule up to 5 posts per month using the platform for free. So if you have not used a planning tool or scheduling tool before, this could be a great option because then you can go ahead and see if you can do once a week kind of posts that are scheduled and see how it goes, and start small versus trying to do one every single day. And something else to look out for when you're reviewing tools is what platforms it integrates with. So Hootsuite integrates with Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, YouTube, and Pinterest. Buffer is quite similar, but a couple of differences are that it includes up to 3 profiles instead of just 2, and it also includes up to 10 scheduled posts per month instead of 5. But it does not integrate with YouTube, which is something that is included with Hootsuite. And things like in-depth analytics and additional users cost extra for Buffer. But their plan above free starts at just $5 a month. And you will see that annual plans for all of these tend to be more affordable than the monthly price. And all of these tools also include 30-day free trial. So that's something to think about if you want to actually get your hands wet and dive into them. Sprout Social is another really popular tool. They do not have a free plan, just a free trial. And it is heftier in price compared to Hootsuite and Buffer at $89 a month. It's very, very comparable to Buffer in terms of what's included. And last but not least, let me go back to the in-app. So a lot of tools like Facebook and Instagram have kind of come up with their own ways for you to be able to schedule out the content. And so within Facebook Creator Studio, you can actually schedule posts to go out onto Instagram and Facebook in a single dashboard. So those are your 2 main channels. You have a free tool right there. Twitter is a little bit trickier. You have to create an ad campaign dashboard. So you have to sign up as an advertiser, which actually does not cost you anything, but it does require you to put in your credit card information, your corporate card information. And once you're in it, then you can use their dashboard to schedule tweets, but it's kind of a workaround. So it's just a couple of things to think about, and it does require you to manually log in to each of these platforms. So that's something else to think about too. So I'll kind of go into each of the examples that I shared, each of the 4 examples that I shared, starting with the Creator Studio that I mentioned. And so what you're seeing here is a screenshot of what you might see on Creator Studio. There's a Facebook icon and an Instagram icon on the top right, which means you can toggle back and forth your 2 platforms really easily and know that you're either in Facebook environment for scheduling out your posts or in Instagram. So that's something to note that is available to folks that have Facebook and Instagram accounts. And they're constantly working on this product, so it's something to look out for. Hootsuite. So I am sharing a screenshot of Hootsuite scheduling area, so you can kind of see a calendar view of posts that have already been scheduled with copy and a little icon to mark which social media channel platform it is using. So, you can kind of see whether it's a tweet or a Facebook post at a glance by identifying the icons. And you can schedule out your content using a calendar at the time that you want the post to go up. And so The calendar view is very, very useful because that is the way a lot of social media planners think about dates and time, and you can really start to optimize when your posts are going out. Next slide is showing a screenshot of Buffer tool, what their dashboard may look like. And we're looking at a content queue tab. On the left side, you can see the number of social media profiles that have been integrated into this Buffer account. So you can see, like Hootsuite, you can identify which channel by the social media icons, so Twitter, Facebook, LinkedIn, so forth. So you can kind of see which ones you're working on. And within that queue, right now we're in Buffer Twitter account. Within that content queue, we can see what posts are being scheduled, what posts are being queued up. It allows you to see this in a list format and a calendar format, so you can kind of really have flexibility in how things are shown. And some social media, managers really like things to look a certain way, so that's definitely personal preference. I would say ease of use is always top of mind for me personally, and so that's something to mention. And then last but not least, I am sharing a screenshot of the Sprout social dashboard, and quite similarly to Hootsuite, it is showing the calendar view of the publishing queue, and it is showing the week of December in this example. And much like the previous examples that I shared, you can see which posts are scheduled for which channel by the icon that's being used. So Instagram icon is clearly visible for ones that are going out for Instagram. You can also see what time the posts are scheduled for and see them chronologically throughout the day, especially when you have multiple posts scheduled for each day. And you can see what your post volume looks like per week. And there's a lot of kind of visual elements of Sprout, which is one of the reasons it is so popular for marketers to use. And you can also see that they have multiple tabs beyond the calendar view. They even have that queue view that we looked at, even a way to identify content that needs approval, for example. So let's move on to the tool-fueled workflow. So here's an example of how your workflow might work if you do decide to move towards a pre-planned approach. Something that works for me is a monthly planning session, but potentially you might prefer to do it every 2 weeks, especially if you're just getting started. But setting aside that time, making a recurring kind of calendar reminder is great. And I recommend trying a full hour or breaking it up into 2 30-minute sessions, but make it short so they can make decisions. And during that planning period, what you can do is you can revisit the frequency and the types of posts that you want to work on based on your strategy. Hopefully you worked on Lori's strategy document, right? And started looking at analytics of how things are performing. And this can be dedicated time that you do spend on looking at analytics for the first 5-10 minutes. And then after that, you want to start to identify timely events and happenings. So what's happening inside your museum? What's happening around your museum locally or nationally or globally? Holidays, for example, and kind of key in those opportunities. And 3, you can confirm your content idea for the upcoming month. Instead of that one single day, you can confirm it for the entire month. And you can really start it for just once a week, for example, like we talked about. Especially if you're going with a free plan where 5 to 10 posts per month are allowed, maybe you can just try 1 or 2 posts per week that are pre-scheduled for starters. So with those 1 or 2 posts per week that you've decided on, you can go ahead and start to think about the visual that you're going to need for each of those content ideas, right? So maybe you do have a really great video in your archive, but you know for sure it's going to need to be condensed to be posted on social media. Maybe it's a 10-minute video and you want it to be closer to 30 seconds. Then you're going to have time to ask a volunteer, ask a video staff member for support, or maybe find time on your own calendar to reduce the video length, for example. But you're going to have time to start working on that workflow. And last but not least, you can actually do some drafting of the copy for these posts, including contacting partners that you know will need to review the content. You can even give them a heads up or ask them, to set aside time on a specific date that you're going to have your copy ready. Maybe you can tap the shoulders of your volunteers to work on some of this copy. Maybe you're doing a feature of a volunteer, for example. So you have time to kind of draft your copy and get support on that. And once everything is in the works, what you can do within this tool is, in a single kind of sitting, you can preview posts within the scheduler of how it's going to look on Twitter, and duplicate it to see how it's going to look on Instagram. And you may want to change the copy a little bit. Twitter, as you may know, is much shorter in terms of its length. Instagram is a highly visual platform, so you're going to want to make sure that there's a powerful square-shaped image or video to go along with your post. You're going to be able to preview this just within seconds within the scheduling tool. And then within a click, you can just go ahead and schedule your finalized post across all of your social media channels without needing to individually log into all of them. And then last but not least, if you do go with a tool that has analytics offerings, then what you can actually do is set an automation and have that analytics report delivered to your inbox every month, so that you know that the performance data is going to land in your inbox. Or maybe it's going to arrive on a date that you have your monthly planning period, for example. And again, as I mentioned, you can review that report at the top of the next planning time, so that you're always leaning on any insights, anything interesting, anything that you may have assumed that's actually performing differently on social media, so that you can, when the next time you're posting, you have more information and you're doing it with your audience in mind. So that's the workflow for incorporating tools into your planning schedule. So and thinking about the tools themselves, a couple tips that I'd love to share with you are very, very simple. It's similar to kind of how you might be thinking about like kitchen tools, for example. Who will be using it now and in the near future? If it's you, think about what you would be able to use easily without a ton of investment in time, right? Because right now, what we're looking to do is reduce your time. And if you do need to kind of share the tool or share aspects of the tool with volunteers or new staff members or other staff members, think about how you're going to train them to adopt the tool too, or whether it's so self-explanatory that it's really not going to need a ton of training. And then what are your core channels? Especially if you decide that your core channels are Facebook and YouTube, then you're going to want to make sure that your scheduling tool works well with your social media channel. And of course, go back to that strategy. What's your goal? What's your purpose? What's your objective? What do you need this tool for? If you need the tool for in-depth social media analytics, then you're going to be focusing your tool research on analytics tools, right? Analytics-specific tools or tools that with powerful analytics features. And then think about when you would be using this tool. Is it something that you want to be able to use on the go? Are you someone who's kind of actively on the museum floor and you need to access it on your phone, for example, then you're going to want to make sure that this platform shows up well on your phone. And think about how frequently you want to use it. Is it part of your day-to-day workflow? Is it really that once a month, or twice a month period that you use this tool? And then one more thing to think about is, how will you know that this tool is being used appropriately? And how do you define success? So I call this kind of the annual, spring cleaning, looking at everything in your closet and all the tools and gadgets that you've acquired. Is it actually being used? Could 5 different tools be replaced with one? Could you get rid of all of them except for just one that you actually need for scheduling? And how do you define success? Maybe it's reduction in time spent in doing XYZ, like sourcing content. So really get clear about what your vision of success would be and what you want the tool to do for you and your strategy. And a couple bonus tips that I kind of mentioned already, but definitely try the 30-day free trial because that's your best bet for seeing how it works and see if you can use it. And when you do sign up for that trial, commit to it, as in integrate your social media platforms that you use and use it for the 30 days. Give it a real go and see if it works. And if it doesn't work for you for any reason, then you can let go of it, worry-free, and you haven't spent any dime on it, just a bit of time. And it might actually give you a sense of clarity around what you're actually looking for. Maybe you'll actually come out of it saying, oh, I don't actually need an powerful analytics tool. I just need to be able to schedule things out. This is working perfectly. Or maybe you will actually say, gosh, in addition to the scheduling tool, I really need visual analytics to share with my leadership, for example, right? And then you're going to be focusing your tool research on those features. But you don't know what you don't know. And then another thing that I did mention briefly is the annual plan tends to be much more affordable than the month-to-month. So, once you know that you're committed to using it, you can save money by going with the annual plan. And another thing to note is that even if it's not clear anywhere on the product website, don't hesitate to reach out to the sales team or the contact form and ask about a discount rate for nonprofits. Because even if it's not clearly listed anywhere, it's something that a lot of companies are dedicated to providing in terms of access. So don't be shy about asking about that before you sign up. And as it's becoming clearer, review all of your digital marketing tools annually, because you might be able to find kind of like these friction moments where you're losing time, or it's just kind of taking up your team's energy needlessly without creating impact. Or you might actually identify moments where your team is actually able to have room for really creative ideas or bigger vision. So review your tools annually and make it a part of your practice as you adopt more and more. Okay, now on to cross-channel integration. So a couple tips. So one of the kind of common questions that I get from museum professionals is, okay, we're starting to see some engagement on social media, but what does it do for a museum? It's a physical place. Will these people ever come visit us? Will they become members or donate? So one simple way you could start to draw connections between your social media channels and your website and your physical museum space is to start to invite people to specific areas of your website to learn more. For example, if there's an upcoming event, you're probably going to want to include a link to that event page on your website. And if you send people to that link using a campaign URL builder, then you're going to be able to see on Google Analytics, which is a free tool for looking at your web analytics. Some of you may have gone to the analytics session workshop here. Then you're going to be able to see which social media post, which content on which channel led people to come to your website and make a purchase, make a ticket purchase to attend a specific event. You're going to be able to see all of that. And a lot of these tools, such as Hootsuite, do have campaign URL builders built into the scheduling tool. And so this is something you can set up front when you're setting up your scheduling tool. With kind of, you can automate a lot of this. And you can always refer to Google Analytics campaign URL builder website. You can just Google search that, Google Analytics campaign URL builder, and it'll take you to a simple form that you can use to fill out all of your details using the parameters that they provide, which then pull in information to Google Analytics. And you can see end-to-end which social media posts led people to do what. It's one of my favorite tools because it makes me feel like I have a 360 view. Another kind of low-hanging fruit opportunity is to make use of your social media profile bio area, the biography area, right? You know, you usually only have a couple words, room for one link is typically how it goes. And many of you may have seen Linktree as one of the free tools out there that allow you to create really curated list of links to send people, so that you're not limited to just a single one, for example. So here's an example that Linktree has provided with kind of nonprofit organizations. You know, you can see how you can increase signups for fundraiser, signups for an event, donations, content, your website, newsletter subscriptions, and so forth. It's a really simple way to set it up. It's mobile responsive, and you can go ahead and add that Linktree link once you create one, and keep it updated so that you can constantly send people to the top specific links to learn more about your museum, learn more about your programs, learn ways to connect with you offline. So that profile space, don't forget to keep that updated and leverage it. All right, I've got a couple more minutes, so I'm going to squeeze in a couple more opportunities here for you. One is around sourcing visuals. Some of you may have, you know, albums and folders filled with photos of your museum, your space, your events, and sometimes you may be just looking for something to post with Earth Day. And so when you're struggling with images, something that you can use are kind of free pages, free websites where you can access something that is a little bit more unique than stock images. So unsplash.com is an example of one where it's artist submitted images, and so there's a great practice of crediting the creators, but you really can use the images because they're not standard stock images, so it feels a little bit more personal. So unsplash.com is a free tool that I would highly recommend. The If Then collection is a really, really great collection that really feature a lot of women in the STEM field and science field, and all available to use for free for non-commercial use. And so if you do work for a science museum, like I do, then you can really help push the boundaries of what scientists look like as represented on your museum social media channels through this collection. And one other tool that you may already be familiar with is Canva. Canva is another free tool that does have a paid plan where you can easily add in your own brand assets. So maybe you have a number of brand colors, brand font, brand elements that you do use for your museum. You can add those in and also source free graphics and free templates for creating designed posts or Instagram stories, both in static graphic formats as well as animated video formats. So this is a great way for small museums, especially without a ton of access to designer time, to create assets that are on brand and beautiful and suited for social media on the go. So both of these are tools that I wanted to share with you. Another kind of tool that I want to share with you is leveraging paid social media. So this is just an example of Facebook, Instagram, now called Meta for business. Because Facebook and Instagram are under Meta, something that you can do, especially if you are active on those channels, is leverage advertising and distribute your advertising across both Facebook and Instagram. And because it's advertising beyond the feed, you can have that content placed in people's messenger inboxes, for example, or combination of stories in addition to the post and feed. And so you can choose the placement of where your content goes if you pay for it. And two, something that you can do is actually deliver that message to a very specific list. For example, maybe there's an annual event that happens at your museum and you want to make sure that folks that went last year know about it. And we know, if you work on newsletter marketing at all, that even the best open rate is probably not going to really exceed 50 or 60%, which means anywhere from 40 to 60% of your email list recipients will never even open your email, no matter how engaged they are with you as one of their favorite museums. They just might get lost in their inbox. So if you, in addition to emailing them, if you add them to a customer list and advertise them the same message in a different way on social media, that's a multi-channel way of reaching them and delivering the message to them. Because maybe they actually stopped really looking at one of their email inboxes because it's filled with spam, and they are losing a couple important messages. This will help make sure that your message is delivered to them. So this is another really great tool, especially if you are looking to deliver your message in more ways than just via email. And this is a great way to try advertising if your company is new or if your museum is new to it, because if you try to tell somebody who has never been to your museum to come to an event, then you're going to have to tell them all about your museum and your event and convince them. But if they have already attended your event the previous year and loved it, that's a much easier audience to speak to. Okay, so we're coming up on time, so a couple final tips and takeaways. Number one, leverage tools to save time, not the other way around. So leverage tools to save time for you. And number two, consider the audience journey and experience. We keep going back to it, not looking at performance data for the sake of looking at data, but trying to see what is picking for people. What are people interested in that you're sharing, and learning from that. And number three, keep experimenting. Try the tool. Try for 30 days. See if your team can make it happen. Maybe you're a team of one and you're just working on this part-time. If you see a potential in this saving you time in the long run, go ahead and try it and see what happens. And see if you can actually onboard a couple of people that can support you. Maybe it's another internal partner, maybe it's a volunteer. Try it and keep building on it, because you'll at the very least walk away knowing what kind of additional support you need even if it didn't work out. So keep experimenting. And that is all. Here's my contact information. My email address is my first and last name, sewonbarrera@gmail.com. And you can also follow me or find me on LinkedIn. And I believe that's all.
Thanks, Sewon. That was great, and I really appreciate the visuals you put up of what each one of the tools looks like. And I remember I had to do Twitter for a museum that I worked at previously, and I had never even looked at Twitter before, so that was problem number one. Something I didn't do in my own personal social channels, but initially someone who was helping me had it all linked through Hootsuite, and so that was the first thing I opened up, and it was a little overwhelming the first time you see those platforms that are really connected to everything. So I always say I am the target audience for these sessions, as somebody that's kind of gotten thrown into having to do social media for an organization as opposed to my own personal channel. So really appreciate all the tips and tricks that you've shared. So we do have a few questions that have come in through the various platforms. And this one, I'm super curious about the answer to. Do you always post the same content on multiple channels, or do you vary based on the platform on which you are posting?
That's a great question, Zinnia. I do believe that it's important to share the same message across different channels, because the people that are super active on Twitter may actually never use Facebook. And your audiences that are really active on Instagram may actually never see your Twitter post or your LinkedIn post, for example. And so making sure that you deliver it on your core channels in different ways, it actually won't feel like a repeat for most people. Most people won't even really see your message on a set channel. So I would say definitely aim to post your content across different channels. And I even included like email and website as additional channels. But one thing to note is that, and you're going to get more insight into this as you look at analytics, is your audience on Twitter might be really different from your audience on Instagram. And you're going to learn to make a distinction if, gosh, this piece of content is going to be great for Twitter, but it is not right for Instagram. For example, if there's no visual component to it, then it just cannot live on Instagram. It's not for that audience. So I would say, think about the channels, the type of communities that live there. Think about your audiences that are on there, but aim to try to post that message on different channels, and see how it goes. Because only then you'll have more information about what happens and what performs for you.
Okay, so perhaps maybe even the same message, but in a slightly different format for each channel.
Yeah. Absolutely, yeah.
That's an evolving skill too, to figure that out. So that kind of leads into this next question, which is very specific to Twitter. How do I integrate cross posts to Twitter to increase Twitter engagement? If you have some, more specific insight on that method.
Yeah, that's a great question. Twitter engagement. Twitter, unlike the way the Instagram and the Facebook feed have kind of evolved, still remains really very much chronological in terms of its experience. So a tweet that you posted may get buried very, very quickly if there's other conversations happening right afterwards. Versus Instagram, it might, because people can go see your grid and see the image kind of your previous post, it feels more kind of like a visual reminder of what you've been talking about. Twitter can be a little bit different. Couple things to think about for Twitter is that there are timely conversations happening on a day-to-day basis. So if there are spaces that your museum is in, definitely follow your peer museums and other partners that are in your space. And on tools like Hootsuite, you can actually create a very specific feed of those specific profiles so that you have one eye on the conversations that are happening, because a big part of Twitter is being a part of those conversations. So I would say keep an eye on those conversations, and make sure you think about the timeliness of your tweets.
That's really great advice in terms of Hootsuite and that ability to be able to, compartmentalize those various conversations so you get a snapshot. For an organization, I always drop in on Twitter to see what the hot topics are of the day or the week. And I completely agree. Okay, so really we're kind of getting up to time here. So I'm going to throw this one out just to wrap it up. But maybe what is your number one tip for managing social media accounts for an organization that has a single person or a small team?
Single person or a small team. I would say don't feel pressured to post once a day. Like, don't think about the quantity so much. Think about if this message that you're sending out, what are one or two things you can share out with the world in a given week, and focus on those messages. And see if you can actually automate your process. Like, if it's one message per week, can you schedule that out in advance so that you have within the week time to work on an additional one that's more timely, right? Maybe tuning into Twitter conversations. How can you free up time for creativity and for strategy by automating the key things that you do want to go out? So I would say, think about those opportunities and don't feel pressured to post every day. I think that's one thing that I hear from folks that want to do social media. They're like, I want to post 3 to 5 times a week. And I'll say, start with 1, start with 2, start with 3 a week.
Well, that's a great place to end. And it kind of goes back to where you began about workflow. And I wrote down pain points, challenges, because it resonates. Where is the real challenge with this, and how can we use some of these great tools you talked about to alleviate those challenges? So thank you so much, Sewon. That was a wonderful presentation. And I'm going to wrap us up for today and thank all of you who are in the audience for attending this live session and really listening to these great tips and tricks about using multiple platforms for social media posts. Just a few final reminders as we close out our show. If you enjoyed the program, please do us a favor and share it with your networks. We really appreciate participation, and we hope to see you in the chat for future digital empowerment project for small museum programming. After all of the modules, all 4 videos will be available on the website. That's again, museum-hub.org, as well as a complete toolkit of the resources provided by our presenters, including PowerPoints and resources that Sewon and the other instructors have provided to you. Please remember to visit the forum on the website and ask any additional questions that you may have about this program or any other technology topic. Follow us on social media. It's a must now, right? And then again, if you could complete that post-event satisfaction survey, that would be wonderful. And so finally, please join us this Thursday. Yes, that is the day after tomorrow, December 16th, for the 3rd and final technical training session of Module 9. We're on sort of an abbreviated schedule due to the holidays. But this final session will feature Jessica Johnson, who is a creative strategist with Snap, Inc. in Landover, Maryland. And in this session, you'll learn how to create impactful social media campaigns for day-to-day and special projects at your institutions. And this will build on the social media strategy and tools and workshops, and we'll explore how to create and launch campaigns that are creative, engaging, efficient, and effective, no matter your team's size. So thank you all for attending today's session. I've enjoyed being your host. I will be with you again on Thursday, and I hope that everybody has a fabulous day.